This is Tiger Stadium in the lakeside city of Detroit, Michigan, where today, in a 25-mile-an-hour wind, the St. Louis Cardinals and Detroit Lions meet in what is the big game among many key ones in the NFL this week. Never before has there been a season like this one, where going into the 12th week, 18 of the 26 teams still have a chance to land in the Super Bowl. Races in each of the 6 divisions in the NFL are so close that all 13 games played this week have a bearing on the playoffs. Major reason for this is the league's new alignment. As an example, look what happened last Saturday on the frozen field of Metropolitan Stadium in Bloomington, Minnesota. The Northland area is a winter wonderland for sports. But the biggest attraction of all is the football Vikings, who, behind one of the finest defenses ever seen in football, rolled to their 3rd consecutive division title on Saturday by mauling the Bears. The win was even more impressive because they did it without their starting quarterback, Gary Quazzo. Bob Lee passed them to victory. In past years, this would have ended the hopes for the second-place Detroit Lions, but today they are very much alive because they can still qualify for the playoffs by being the second-place team with the highest winning percentage. Thus, their game against St. Louis is crucial for them. As for the Cardinals, the game between the New York Giants and Buffalo was vital because the Giants were also very much in the running. They trailed St. Louis by a game and a half and could project themselves even further into the crowded race by beating the Bills. This the Giants did, led by 2 familiar names, Tucker Fredrickson and Fran Tarkenton, and also by their newest stars, running back Ron Johnson and receiver Clifton McNeil, both of whom were acquired in trades. These 4 key players, plus a revamped Giants defense, set up a showdown next week when New York meets the Cardinals in St. Louis. Thus, the game in Detroit is crucial for the Cardinals, for if they lose, their lead could be cut to only a half game over the Giants and the Dallas Cowboys, who also won this week. So today's contest is another in a long string of must games, so common this season, and this one promises to be a titanic clash between 2 evenly matched squads. These are the 2 highest scoring teams in the entire NFL, and both have impressive defensive statistics. The Lions' defense is the leader at stopping the run, and appropriately today they'll have to halt the best running game in the league. The Cardinals boast a defense that is second in the league only to Minnesota. They've been so good that they had a streak of 3 straight shutouts. With 5 consecutive wins, St. Louis has a lot of momentum, but both teams have great motivation. The trip to Miami in January. I'm Jack Whitaker, and this is the NFL Game of the Week. St. Louis versus Detroit. The game opened with St. Louis getting the first break in a game that would have many. Jim Hart completed a pass to breakaway threat John Gilliam, but safety Mike Wager hung on to thwart a first down and forced the first punt of the game. It was a dandy for St. Louis. Lem Barney let the punt slip right through his hands, and Jerry Danon fell on the ball on the Lion 37. It was the first turnover in a game of errors. Once again, Jim Hart and the Cardinals found Detroit's defense too tough to move against. So the reliable Jim Bakken was called in, and he delivered from the 29-yard line. St. Louis had drawn first blood and led 3-0. The Lions started off as if they couldn't be stopped. Altie Taylor accelerated through the St. Louis defense before being bumped out of bounds 20 yards later. But then the turnover, which would play a major role today, ended Detroit's series. Landry's pass to McCullough was deflected and intercepted by Miller Farr, who for the first time was playing opposite his brother, Lions running back Mel Farr. His theft was the last significant play of the first quarter. But the first play of the second period was a whopper. Jim Hart lofted the ball into an open space in Detroit's zone defense, and John Gilliam avoided 2 flying tackles before being brought down from behind by Wayne Walker at the Lions' 8-yard line. The pass covered 79 yards. Incredibly, St. Louis got nothing out of it. The Lions forced another field goal attempt, and for the first time this year, Jim Bakken missed from inside the 40. The wind was the big factor today, and receivers were having problems catching the ball. Charlie Sanders muffed this pass from Landry. So the Detroit quarterback went to the screen to Mel Farr, which was successful for 21 yards, and for the first time as a pro, Mel Farr was tackled by Miller Farr. Detroit was unable to move any further, though, and Herman Weaver punted to Chuck Latterette at the St. Louis 30. But once again, the wind-whipped football was misjudged, and Detroit had new life on the enemy 27. Detroit moved closer to the Cardinal goal, and a diving catch by Charlie Sanders at the 3. The big tight end tried to roll the rest of the distance. But even with a first down at the 3, the Lions couldn't cross the goal line. Defense won out again as Detroit settled for Earl Mann's 14-yard field goal and a 3-3 tie ball game. For the rest of the half, Detroit's defense held the Cardinals to zilch. The key was their ability to control number 36, MacArthur Lane. The Lion linebackers stalked him so well that Lane gained only 9 yards running in the first half. In the meantime, Detroit's offense was controlling the ball. Greg Landry arched a beautiful pass into the arms of Earl McCullough, and he dragged Roger Worley to the 13. With 2 minutes left in the half, Landry's perfect pass to Taylor in the end zone was dropped. Taylor had slipped a bit on the icy surface, so Earl Mann kicked his second field goal from the 13, and Detroit took the lead 6-3. "27 seconds later, Detroit had the ball again as Chuck Latterette, returning the kickoff, fumbled for the second time. Linebacker Ed Mooney thought he should have scored with his fumble recovery, but the inevitable whistle had blown. Nevertheless, Detroit had another golden opportunity, and again it was Charlie Sanders who burned the Cardinals. First, the 235-pound tight end caught the ball despite tight double coverage by Larry Stallings and Jamie Rivers. Then he made another good catch of another perfect Landry pass to put the ball on the 3-yard line with just 3 seconds remaining. Earl Mann made the field goal, his 9th point in 5 minutes. And the Detroit Lions took a wind-blown, error-filled 9-3 lead into the locker room. We'll be right back with more exciting action on the NFL Game of the Week. With the mid-afternoon moon hovering over, the second half began. The third quarter would see both the Cardinals and the Lions unable to change the 9-3 score, although Detroit's first series started well. The running of Mel Farr and the receiving of big number 88, Charlie Sanders, carried Detroit to the Cardinals' 38. But then an almost unbelievable chain of events almost pushed Detroit out of their own stadium. After Landry was dumped by Bob Rowe, 2 holding penalties cost the Lions 45 yards, so that they eventually had a 3rd down and 59 from their own 13. Holding penalties would plague both teams throughout the game, and Detroit had to give it up, barely missing their first down, by only 44 yards. Jim Hart called his first running play since the first quarter, knowing that he must establish his ground game. But the Lions were still containing MacArthur Lane, so Hart then moved his team on a string of medium-range passes to his receivers. The Cardinals are fortunate to have such a well-balanced offense that the defense cannot key specifically on the run or the pass. They must always be wary of both. After Hart's pass to Jackie Smith took it to the Lions' 22, the Cardinals got 5 for free when all the linebackers came in too soon. But from there, the rugged Lion defense turned the tide. On 3rd and 6 from the 8, Hart looked for Williams in the end zone, but he had slipped, and Lem Barney came up with one of his biggest interceptions of the season, one that thwarted St. Louis after a long and effective drive. The Lions still clung to a 9-3 lead. The Lions tried to add to their 6-point lead after the interception, but the Cardinals' defense was magnificent, a defense that ranks 5th in the NFC. The Cardinals' defense is a perfect blend of youth and ageless veterans like safety Jerry Stovall, number 21, who stopped the last play by knifing down Mel Farr. Their defensive line is a prime example of their bright future. They average 3 years of experience, and number 82, Joe Schmeezing, put the wood to Landry to end another unusual series for Detroit. So far this quarter, the Lions had moved the ball 61 yards backwards, and Herman Weaver had to punt again. But the Cardinals could not capitalize on their field position, as the cold, the wind, and the breaks would continue to haunt them. Hart recovered his own fumble on 1st down. On 2nd, he hit Gilliam at the sidelines, but the official ruled Gilliam out of bounds, and Gilliam promptly registered his complaint. Then on 3rd down, Jim Hart's old bugaboo struck again. The interception was his 2nd, and the interceptor, Lem Barney, had his 2nd. It was a classic case of goat-turned-hero. Barney, who had fumbled a punt in the 1st quarter and who has been burned quite a few times during the season, was now making the big plays when they were needed most. From their own 42, the Lions began to roll behind the running of Altie Taylor as the 3rd quarter ended. But the Big Red defense again rose up and flapped its wings. It became more and more apparent that this game would be won or lost on the breaks, as neither team could sustain a drive for long. Besides, it was getting colder and windier by the minute. Sure enough, the breaks came in bundles. In the next play, Larry Wilson picked off Landry's pass and had the Cardinals deep in Lion territory on his run back. But defensive holding nullified it and gave Detroit a first down to boot. So the Cardinals' defense dug in again and again brought up a punting situation as Fred Herron and Ralph Kruger got to Landry. The Cardinals would sack Landry 6 times today. The Lions, who almost never get fancy, then tried some trickery. They centered to the blocking back, not the punter, but he fumbled and punter Weaver carried for a 1-yard gain. The Cardinals had another break on the Lions' 46. This time it was Detroit's turn to push the Big Birds back and send them south for winter. Number 53, Mike Lucci, stopped the first 2 downs with the kind of play that has made him a perennially underrated middle linebacker. On 3rd and 6, Jim Hart's own legs stopped him as he took the Cardinals unhappily out of field goal range. The Cardinals had once again failed to decrease their 6-point deficit. We'll be right back with more exciting action on the NFL Game of the Week. With 10 minutes left, nursing a 9-3 lead, the Lions definitely needed another score. But the St. Louis defense continued to cage the Lions. It took a Landry run to get Detroit out of a deep hole as he bootlegged and rolled around right end for 12 yards and a first down. The importance of having a good running quarterback was never more evident. On a repeat of the play, watch Landry put a good move on the left end and get the necessary yardage. Landry gives the Lions a 3rd setback, but neither he nor the other 2 were able to move Detroit any further, and Weaver punted. Chuck Latterette did it again. This time it wouldn't hurt, though, as his fumble went quickly out of bounds. The Birds had boards for Hands today, and Hand had a bird in his arms as he dropped Jim Hart, which only goes to prove that a bird in hand is worth 2 aching hearts, or whatever. But seriously, folks, on the very next play, the frigid finger of fate again struck. Hart dropped the snap. Alex Karras and the Lions recovered for the Cardinals' 5th turnover of the game, and the one that would hurt the most. The Lions had the ball in the Cardinal 32, ready to pick up that insurance score, and the Detroit partisans went wild. The Lions needed exactly 2 plays to score. On 2nd down, Mel Farr took a handoff, went off tackle, cut to his right, and was off. 28 yards later, the Lions had their first touchdown of the game and a 16-3 lead. On a repeat of the score, watch number 8, All-Pro safety Larry Wilson, as he reads the play, follows the flow, and loses the battle to number 24 in a beautiful head-to-head confrontation between runner and defender. Farr is enjoying his finest years since he gained 860 yards as a rookie from UCLA in 1967. And his 9th touchdown of the year had put the Lions 13 points ahead with 5 minutes to play. This was it for St. Louis. They had to score on this drive, and they had to pass to score. They had to catch, too, and this was their downfall. They never did get their hands around the ball again, as the roar of the lion was being felt on every play, and Jim Hart failed to get his desperately needed first down. The Cardinals had again been stifled, and with the cold and rawness of the day, nerves were very short. With 3 minutes left, the Lions had only to run the clock out, and Taylor and Farr began to do just that, as the Lions were able to gain 160 yards rushing for the game. Landry needed one big first down with under a minute left, and he got it by giving Craig Cotton his first NFL career reception. It was a fitting climax to a brilliant 16-3 victory for Joe Schmidt and his Detroit Lions, who haven't lost to St. Louis at home in 21 years. More importantly, it keeps Detroit's playoff hopes alive, still having only 4 losses. If they can beat the Rams and Packers, the Lions will probably be the 4th team in the NFC playoff. Even though they lost, the Cardinals are still 1/2 game ahead of the Giants and Cowboys in the NFC East, and are too very much in the thick of this scintillating race in the NFL. A year in which, with 2 weeks left, anything can still happen, and probably will.